Are tech stocks starting the new bull run? We'll take a look at a lot of tech companies out there, dive into a little bit how blockchain and AI maybe are starting to come together, and take a look at, of course, at Apple and break all this down for you guys. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Before we get started, if you guys have not checked out our Crypto Power Index, it's one of the tools we use here on the channel to basically look at a variety of tokens. Mainly what we're looking at is crypto sentiment, both on trading, etc. Just go over to Paul Barron Network. You'll find us over there. But there's a lot you can get. We've got our cryptocurrency breakdown of almost, well, we're going on 45 tokens now, just a couple more getting ready to jump in. You can also get a full dashboard, all of our crypto rankings. We do technical analysis that we drop both in the CPI along with some of our membership programs. And those are video analysis that we don't do necessarily here on the show. So make sure and check it out. It's pretty cool. And I think it will help you guys in terms of trying to get into your own crypto swag. So let's get into Apple a little bit, hitting the $3 trillion mark. And this, I think, is a pretty significant moment in technology history. And the reason being is that what we're seeing is kind of this perfect storm. And I've talked about it before. The perfect storm of technology advancement with AI, what we're seeing in AR, VR, also what we'll see in blockchain gaming, NFTs, etc., I think are all going to be coming together and be spurring on some interesting aspects. Let's go to a clip here we have, and let's jump over to this first clip real quick.
And of course, Apple, we do officially now have, for the first time since January 22, a market cap above $3 trillion.
It's historical to get a $3 trillion stock. Haven't seen it before.
Whether or not it has more to go, you heard Carl mention Citi at 240 price target. We'll see, but there is a belief that there is still growth to come.
Pretty easy to come up with maybe a very sustained 15 to 20% earnings growth. Very confident that Apple remains a buy.
And Citi says it's going to keep going higher. How higher? How much higher?
That is, I think, the million-dollar question, although they do actually have a pretty optimistic price target, more optimistic than the rest of the street here, actually calling for about 30% upside from at least Thursday's closing price. Citi does have now a $240 price target.
Now, I don't think it ends here. We believe this is a $4 trillion market cap by 2025.
The goggles will mean what, do you think? Does that help with the AI build out?
Really, ultimately, it's the breadcrumbs to what I see them building out an AI app store for Apple. And I don't think you've seen even any of that multiple reflected from an AI perspective in names like Apple or even Tesla. And that's why I think this big tech rally, we believe the new bull market in tech has begun. We see tech stocks up another 15% second half of the year.
Meanwhile, another company that analysts continue to be bullish on, despite the fact that it's had huge year-to-date gains, of course, is NVIDIA, one of the biggest winners of the first half. Another analyst upgraded it today.
We would see this name as the best performer in the S&P 500 year-to-date because it is up 180% now on the year and continuing to rip higher.
I'm just taking a look at the breakdown for the Nasdaq year-to-date. NVIDIA, the biggest winner on the Nasdaq this year, as you said, up 180%, although Meta not too far behind it. It's up about 134%.
All right, so if you've been following our channel, then we've been talking about these stocks along with just the technology really behind it. And one thing that I've mentioned before when we released the video on the Vision Pro with Apple, I think this is the next generation of where Apple is going to create a whole new treasure trove of revenue, products, services, much like what the iPhone did for the App Store, podcasting, and all the other aspects. I think we now are poised for a very interesting next step forward. Here's another clip I want to play on the Apple Vision Pro pricing.
Do you think this is something that the average person will be able to afford?
I don't know. I think people will make different choices depending upon their current financial situation and so forth. The engineering and depth of engineering in it is mind-blowing. You've got more than a 4K experience in each eye. And of course, it doesn't come for free. It costs something to do that. But I think it's a great value.
When he said $34.99, I said, oh, $34.99? That's not bad. But no, it's almost $3,500.
I found that
the first cell phone, that brick that people might remember. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much, Ross, in the control room. That brick, originally when it came out in 1984, was $4,000. That would have been $11,000 in today's money. And what tends to happen with technology is that as it gains widespread use, as more people purchase, you get the super users first, but as more people buy it, flat screen TVs are an example here too, the price tends to come down. And so a lot of analysts are looking at this as that. But people, those super fans have to show up first.
And I'll use a golfing term. You can be on the range all you want, but you got to get out on the course.
Right.
And this is what they're doing. They're getting out there.
Yeah, this is one thing that I think really we are in the early stages of what this tech will be doing. And I would agree, technology is deflationary. It tries to work its way down. And they're right. I mean, the early days of cell phones in general, all the way back to bag phones, et cetera. But the early adopters were the ones that got ahead of the game. And I think that will be the case here, especially in seeing different kind of use cases, the developers, et cetera, along with people who are going to start to understand what this might mean in everyday lives. If you listen to Palmer Luckey, you kind of start to get a little bit more realization of maybe where this is going. Let's go to that clip.
I think Apple's going after the exact right segment of the market that Apple should be going after. So the thing you have to remember is different companies, I think, have different products that are right for them to be building. I think if Apple had tried to go after the low end of the market, that would have been a mistake. Before VR can become something that everyone can afford, it must become something that everybody wants. And I think that's the approach Apple is taking. They're trying to go balls to the wall, the highest possible resolution, the highest quality possible displays, the best possible ergonomics. And they're going all in on that with little regard for it being affordable for everyone. Sure. And I think that is actually the right approach for Apple to take right now.
So what do you think about the hand gestures and lack of haptics, and where do you think haptics are going to go?
I think that's probably one of the things I would have done differently than Apple. On the other hand, they have a plan for VR input that goes beyond just the finger inputs. I think they're taking a focused marketing approach, but I think they have a broader vision for the future than everything just being eyes and fingers.
Yeah, big one right there. Palmer hits it on the head, and that is when you look at kind of those early stage tech products is you're going after certain market segments that are going to, one, kind of accelerate the demand through, whether it's, keeping up with the Joneses, but more importantly, I think how people will realize this is the next level of interface. And I think that is a big statement. Another point he hits on is just how these inputs are going to happen. We did a video not too long ago where we broke this down with Unity. And one of the things that we broke down in there was how Unity was continuing to expand on this, both on the keyboards, controllers, but right there, keyword there, other system supported devices. So if you've seen the Vision Pro, you've already seen the hand gestures playing into it. I think this is the next device in terms of input, and then that's our own hands. So the days of maybe mouse and keyboard and controllers may be coming to an end. I mean, if you just think Ready Player Me, what we saw in that vision of where all this is going could be going in that direction as well with what Apple is doing with the Vision Pro. All right, so a couple other things here. MetaQuest, of course, introducing the MetaQuest Plus. So this is a new VR subscription. And I think in reality, this is probably one of the better things that will help bridge the gap. Like Palmer Luckey said, remember that he's the founder of Oculus. He said, listen, people don't know what they want until they realize what they're missing. And I think that's something that these kinds of subscriptions are going to do. So you're going to get a couple of games for like $8 a month. This will start to go up in price too, much like Netflix and anything else. You could probably get this for $29.95 easily as demand starts to lift and people start to use these devices. Right now, this is the early stage for Meta. Meta's going after the low end of the market. Apple's going after the upper end of the market. Understand that completely. Now, Niantic is the other one that everybody's been kind of saying, well, wait a minute, they're falling out of the game. If you look at some things within their most recent organizational update, this tells you everything. Let me kind of scan down here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me zoom in on that for you guys. I've made a decision to narrow our focus for mobile game investments. This is a big statement because a lot of people say, all right, they're laying off these people, but in reality, what they want to do is this. We also want to increase our focus on building for the emerging class of mixed reality devices and future AR glasses. This tells you the future, people. This is what we're talking about in terms of innovation in tech. AI will be a part of this, and I still believe blockchain, Web3, and NFTs will be a critical component in how all of this is starting to implement into society. So a big one for sure. Another topic here, Sony, their Mocopi Quest compatible VR chat body tracking is now out. And if you look at some of the things that they're doing within this, let me jump to this tweet over here just to show you. These are the little sensors that you can pretty much build around your body or, on things, even your pets, something like that. But the point is that this is going to start to create new experiences within VR, which is going to be really interesting. I think Sony obviously is right there with it. We've got a couple of clips here I want to play for you because the release on this is coming out soon. All right, so I want to jump over to the Microsoft aspect of this because I want to cover down a full, run of all these tech companies that potentially could be included in this bull run. I'll go into the charts at the end and maybe even some crypto tokens that you guys should be paying attention to for all of this. But let's go to this first clip on Microsoft versus the FTC.
The Microsoft Activision hearing is over. Now we await the judge's decisions.
The FTC and the Microsoft last night spent hours quibbling over the facts in this case in their closing arguments. And here's what the judge thinks, sounding pretty skeptical about the data the FTC's expert witness, who is a Harvard economist, provided. Most expecting a ruling within days because the deadline for Microsoft to close the deal to buy Activision is July 18th. Now, if Microsoft wins, it will likely move forward to close the deal here in the U.S., and the FTC may even just drop the case altogether. But if Microsoft loses, it says it will likely have to abandon the deal and pay that Activision $3 billion break fee. But that's just here in the U.S., guys, because even if it all goes Microsoft's way here, the timeline just doesn't add up in the United Kingdom, where it's appealing regulators' decision there to block the deal. A tribunal in the UK is not going to look at the case until the end of July. That's way after the deadline. So now the speculation begins. Microsoft's options here, well, it can negotiate new terms with Activision to extend the deadline, like finding a new price above the $95 a share they already agreed on. Or it can find a way to close the deal, excluding the UK in some way, until the issue is resolved there. But for now, Microsoft is keeping that strategy secret. We probably won't get more details in the next chapter of this drama until after we get the ruling from the judge in that case here against the FTC.
All right, so interesting results here. I want to jump to another clip here on this very thing. This is actually the judge versus the FTC. Listen in.
Day 5 of Microsoft versus the FTC got incredibly spicy. How does that harm consumers? The judge asked. Now the consumer, if the deal goes through, has to find some of the content only on the Game Pass. Judge, like Sony does with Activision, right? I mean, we have testimony to that. They take money from other platforms and delay. Beth Wilkinson was just sitting there the whole time like, let them cook. And the judge kind of got mad at the FTC. So Beth had a chance to sort of go on this rant, right? And to say that you want to stop a $69 billion transaction, but you can't figure out what the harm will be, I think that answers the question. I mean, if they can't figure out what the harm is, what they're turning to you or to us to say, you should figure it out, it's too hard. Like what? One of the most surprising moments in my opinion. So the FTC is saying, Judge, I know you won't be scared off because of the size of the deal for making the right ruling, but the merger is permanent. Once they decide to merge, they come together. We've heard about the harms, for example, to Sony in terms of optimization. Judge interrupts him. Well, it's not about the harm to Sony we care about. It's the harm to consumers. And if Call of Duty were on Game Pass, but not on PlayStation Plus, wouldn't that just incentivize Sony to up their game, so to speak, on the PlayStation Plus to improve the content, maybe make stuff available more immediately? The judge encouraged them to play that out, how the consumer is harmed, because I still don't understand why then Sony doesn't just make their PlayStation Plus better.
Okay, so this is good for consumers, I think, in general, just the whole Activision, Microsoft, if it does come through. The real question, as you kind of saw in the earlier clip, is how will this play out on a global landscape? Because the UK does have a lot to do with this. So still a lot happening. I would agree. I think they'll probably end up getting maybe an approval through the US, through the FTC, and maybe getting a renegotiation at some point for the Activision acquisition. So we'll see how all this plays out. So let's take a look at some of the projects and also stocks that we are looking at. We continue to track here on the channel of what's going through on this tech bull run. And of course, one I want to start with is Render. Render, of course, if you guys have been under a rock and not watching our channel, we've been talking about Render for quite some time. This, of course, is Jules Erbach rendering using Live WebXR. This is the Apple Vision Pro. Something that I think is going to be a big part of how Render starts to integrate into us. And we already know Octane X and its use within the iPad, all that kind of tech that's already been disclosed. The opportunity, I think, here is pretty big for Render. Obviously, we've seen it up recently. We'll take a look at the charts on that one as well. And then I want to do a full rundown here on a lot of the projects that we've kind of covered. Here's some of the ones that we've covered over the past little bit. Unity, of course, is one of our, I would say, one of our stocks that we've been really behind in what they've been able to do. Meta is another one we continue to follow and really have been looking at for quite some time. It's one that we've played on within our own portfolios and done very well, along with NVIDIA and others like that. If you take a look at just where things are happening right now, this, of course, is Microsoft. This is looking at the weekly. So obviously, I would agree with the analysts. I think the bull run is still continuing to move along here. And if you take a look at Meta, this, of course, has just been absolutely skyrocketing. One of our best performing investments outside of maybe Bitcoin and some of the other altcoins that we've been on, and Unity. Unity is the other one that has really taken off here. And I think the advantage with Unity is, depending on where you entered, like right here in, say, mid-May to where it is right now, that's a big part of where Unity's growth. I still think this one is going to be undervalued, and that was a 62% gain just in that short period of time. So again, more that we like. NVIDIA is the one that, of course, everybody is talking about. It's been on the kind of on the run for quite some time. And again, all these technology stocks and crypto projects that we're mentioning are all aligned together. Back to the point I've made further earlier this week, and that is these perfect storms that are brewing around AR, VR, AI, and blockchain. All of that coming together pretty much at the same time, which is innovating in a lot of these companies who are in the midst of rebuilding a lot of their own tech stacks, including Apple, to maybe go to the next level. So a lot happening out there for sure. All right, so jumping into the projects for crypto, of course, Solana leads the way with, I think, the most opportunity here in terms of NFTs, Web3. You guys hear us talk about this a lot. We probably should get James back on the show, but nice little move here with Solana, continuing to chart up here as well. If you're not following our CPI, as I said earlier in the show, make sure and jump into it. These are all of our CPI tokens that we've been tracking for quite a bit. Avalanche seems to try to recorrect after that dash down. And then we also have Render. Let me jump over here to Render to give you guys a look at Render. Another one that has been up and to the right. If you look at it overall, we're showing the daily right here. But let's go back all the way to our entry points right in here. And some of our entry points were absolutely insane. Even right now, we're at about 276. But if we did, some of those we did exit on those early enough. Not really bragging our book, but if you were at the top and you were tracking with us, then you were seeing some pretty amazing gains. That was a 500% gain right there. Between early January, Render was one of our biggest tokens that we liked. And we still like. And Flow, of course, is the one that I still believe is going to be another one that starts to move in. Flow is in its early state. Be on the lookout for that one as well. So lots happening in the crypto side of things that are related to a lot of what's happening in the technology sectors in place of how blockchain, AI, and AR/VR starts to intersect. So all that stuff, again, if you guys are not following us out there on the Diamond Circle, it's the best place to catch us with not only our emails, but we also do additional podcasts over there. Kyle and myself do one for our Diamond Circle only. It covers Web3 projects along with additional analysis. We do some video analysis over there, so it's easy to do. Just click the link down below. And of course, if you're not following me out there on Twitter, it's @PaulBaron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.